I'm here at Unleash today speaking with Gary Bolles, Chair for the Future of Work at Singularity University. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you.
So, Chair for the Future of Work at Singularity University.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit more about this?
Absolutely. So Singularity University is a global learning platform. We've got about 24 partners around the world that use our brand. We've got over 300 adjunct faculty who are brainiacs on everything from artificial intelligence to next generation medicine. And we've got about 1 million people that have come through our programs in one form or another.
All right. And so, what are you training these people in? I mean, I hear obviously that you've got all kinds of brainiacs, and I imagine different kind of programs, but what are the main things that you're training people on?
So what the founders of Singularity 11 years ago, Peter Diamandis and Ray Kurzweil, realized is that there are these exponential technologies that are transforming our industries, our organizations, and our lives. And we need to be able to help people to understand the mechanics of those technologies and not just to see them as disruption, but to actually see them as tools that we can each use to be able to lead that change.
Yes, so it's about changing people's mindset in a way, I guess, and looking at technology as something that is going to make their lives easier and is going to enable them to work differently.
So I talk about mindset and skill set. So the whole idea behind an exponential mindset is that as Ray Kurzweil plotted, there's a continuing exponential curve for so many technologies, originally for microprocessors, but again and again in a range of different arenas, where the pace of change is only going to continue to accelerate. And so the mindset that says that's pretty inevitable, and whether it's good or bad kind of doesn't matter, it is what it is. And so how do we help people to be able to understand that it's a mindset shift? How do you realize that there's going to be continuous change? And how do we put the strategies in place so that we can continually adapt? So that's the mindset. And then the skill set is, well, what are those actual skills? I typically talk about 4, what I call sort of the skills for tomorrow, or exponential skills.
Yes.
Pace, problem solvers who are adaptive, creative, and with empathy. Everybody's got their different models of what is needed for that skill set, but the basic premise is that if it is a world of continuing exponential change, we need to all have a completely different new tool set in our toolkit. Yes. That we have access to that allows us to be able to not only adapt to those changes, but to be able to drive those changes.
Yeah, I was actually, when I heard you talking about that, I hear some soft skills obviously going through.
Well, actually, they're all what we would typically, so there's actually research, believe it or not, going back to the 1950s that breaks down skills into 2 sort of big bins. One is what we often call knowledges, which is information that's sort of anchored in an arena. And another are skills that are transferable, that are usable in a range of different situations. And unfortunately, we call those hard skills and soft skills.
Yeah.
The PACE skills that I talk about, they are all what would typically be classified as transferable skills. And the truth is that what's increasingly becoming clear is that so much of our traditional education institutions were focused on knowledges. I mean, that's where we kept the information in the past, was in the brains of teachers and in the books on the shelves in the schools. And today we keep the world's information in our digital distraction devices.
Yes.
And so increasingly what we've got to do is realize that knowledge is we're going to get just in time and just in context. That is, we're going to solve a problem right in front of us. But the transferable skills, the skills usable in a range of different situations, we need to explicitly train people to be able to use those. I've got 9 courses on LinkedIn Learning where I talk about everything from the new rules of work to building adaptive managers and building adaptive employees. And the whole premise is we must explicitly learn these skills so that we can use them in a range of different situations, because we can't possibly anticipate the problems of tomorrow that we're going to need to solve.
Exactly, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about as well. How do you prepare your workforce, maybe not for 10 years, but how do you prepare your workforce from 5 years from now? You already mentioned, of course, these, well, let's say soft skills, that transferable skills, better. Yeah. That's a very important part. But if we look at other ways organizations can prepare themselves for this, do you have any advice?
So, quite a bit. Yeah, don't ask a chair for the future of work on advice on the future of work. You're going to get lots of advice. So I'll give you some of the basics.
Yes.
So the first is that the rhetoric around that there's all of these jobs that we haven't even envisioned, and the rhetoric around that robots and software are going to take all the existing jobs. So suddenly we've all got to be able to do those new jobs of tomorrow. It turns out that the research doesn't actually really clearly support that. What it says is that the tasks that so many of us perform are going to change, that more and more automation will perform some of those tasks.
Yes.
And increasingly what will happen is, if you think of it in terms of a Venn diagram, if this is the work you're doing today, this is the work you're doing tomorrow, there's still a significant amount of overlap in the tasks, the problems that you're solving, and the skills that you're using, but the nature of the work continually changes. And so the context of work will change. I talk a lot about what I call a portfolio of work. It's no longer one person, one job, but it's increasingly a range of different projects and tasks. Yes. And I talk a lot about how organizations need to, what my friend John Hagel calls unbundle. That is, they need to think completely differently about the way that they channel human energy to solve a different set of problems. In the past, what we did is we created these things called organizations, and we had hierarchies. And as I'll talk about today, we treated that as a box. There's abundance outside the box. My friend Peter Diamandis, the co-founder of Singularity, talks a lot about abundance. And there's scarcity inside the box. What organizational leaders, and especially HR, need to do is to have a completely new mindset. Not think of it as a box where you're basically trying to manage this scarcity internally, but instead to think of it as a network. That is, unbundle the box, soft edges of the box, everything from a problem and project-centric way of managing inside the organization, teaching managers to become what my friend Esther Wojcicki calls the guide on the side, rather than the command and control manager, to mentorships, apprenticeships, project work, gig work, platform work, all the above. All of those unbundle the organization and create what I call the new network. And so that's a completely different mindset change, and especially for HR people who are used to the very process-centric work of the past, of getting people into the box and managing them inside the box. It's often a failure of imagination. We can't actually picture what that more exponential organization is going to look like.
Gary, when we look into the future of work, how does your ideal future of work look?
Well, I'm very consistent on this. The most positive future of work for me is one that's a future of work for humans. If we take the whole rhetoric that basically robots and software are going to take all the jobs, I always say robots and software don't take jobs. Humans give them away. If we're going to continue to automate a whole bunch of tasks to try to reduce costs within the organizations, and we don't think in terms of the ways that we're actually helping to channel human energies, then it's a failure for all of us. Instead, what the organization needs to become is a platform on which those energies are channeled in the most effective way possible, where humans come together to collaborate, to be able to channel their particular skills and knowledges and experiences to be able to work together to solve the problems of tomorrow. And so that is a completely different way of thinking. It's a new mindset. It's a new way of thinking about the organization as a platform for channeling those energies. And if we can do that, and we can leverage more and more technologies to allow humans to be able to do that, to use AI to help us to uncover our own abilities, to be able to collaborate on using our abilities together, then that's a more positive future of work for humans.
Definitely. Beautifully said. Thank you very much, Gary.
Anytime.